And in the previous video, we made a lot of progress because we now have something that we can call the server. And if I run, I can do all sorts of nothing because there is nothing out there. But well, we can type weird commands and have a cool error message here, and you can type help if you want to get a list of everything that you can call, that you can actually call and do stuff in the server. And you can, for example, access some variables, test, and can do this. YouTube, subscribe. So please subscribe to this channel so you're not gonna lose anything. Oh my god, I forgot to remove the error message when you type nothing because you can just ignore this. Let me just fix that real quick. If the input is nothing, if imp is literally nothing, I'm gonna return. Here you go. And you can press kill to quit the game. That's very useful. Here you go. Now I can type nothing, and if I type quit, it's gonna shut down the server. So this is a basic application to my server, and in this video what we need to do is basically start writing the tick method. That is basically a function that we're gonna be called every often, like 30 times a frame or 16 times a frame. It's up to you, and maybe the connection listener, because right now the server, we are actually writing a massive multiplayer online role-playing game server, and it's not online because there is nothing about server, there is nothing about networking yet in the server. This is going to be something that are going to start working very soon. It's not a huge problem, but I want to make sure that we're going to have a solid foundation before that. Okay, oops, my keyboard almost died here. Anyways, something that I'd like to do first, and I'm not sure about that, is to make the server class like a base class and implement this base class. I think that may make a lot of sense. It's complicated because sometimes some stuff like the data of the client, you're gonna have to think in a way to allow this kind of implementation. But what is important for now is that I want to try to keep this code as separated as possible, because well, if later on, maybe when we finish this project, we want to do like another online game, we will be able to use the same code base. Or maybe you guys somewhere in the future, when I don't know, if I decide to release this code, you guys will be able to use it. I don't know. So I want to do this kind of separation. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and create, I'm gonna go ahead and rename this. No, I will actually create a new class here inside the server. I'm going to create a new file called gameserver.py, and I'm going to paste everything that we was doing here in the game server, and I'm going to rename this to game server. So this class we're now going to be called game server. Just very simple. Okay, and here in the server.py, I'm going to do from game server import game server, and we will be able to like implement this in a massive multiplayer online server, MMO server. Maybe if I let everything camel case it, I'm not sure, and then it's gonna implement the game server. So let me initialize this. I always forgot how to call the superclass in Python. I really don't remember. I'm gonna have to look up that because I don't remember. It's complicated. It's kind of weird that you have to call like super init. I'm not sure. I don't remember. I think the way you do is basically calling like game server underline init, and then you pass self. If I remember correctly, that's it. And now here I'm gonna basically in the main function you create the MMO server, and then you'll be able to run it. So hopefully, yes, it works. Just simple like that. And now what it means is that I can keep my game server class a little bit more generic, and if I want to do something more specific, I can use it here. Okay, and I will actually I don't know how to set it, like getters and setters. I don't know a cool way of doing this. Put it like this. Here you go. Fair enough. And here I'm gonna create functions, virtual methods. There's no concept of virtual methods in Python, which sucks, but well, the naming does not matter here a lot. It's just a comment for me to figure out what we were gonna do, okay? And the first virtual method that we're gonna do is the tick method. And the documentation is runs every server frame. Okay, and we're gonna have to define here like a variable. Let me make the terminal protected here as well. I don't want to be bothering my terminal in the run. All right, but let me try to think a little bit. Okay, let me create a tick frequency variable here. I'm gonna make it 30 frames as default, and this tick method we're gonna be called every time, every tick, okay, on every tick. And something that I'm gonna do here in my MMO server is implement this tick. And for now I'll just print it's working. So hopefully in some seconds we will be able to have this working and being called every frame. Okay, so let's actually write some code to run this. So I'm gonna create a new method, and you may ask why you don't you call it here, because the terminal.run is actually blocking the thread. So the thread is gonna wait for the user input. So if I call like self.tick here, the tick you want, actually that's a great idea. Let's use this for a test for us to figure out why it's not a great idea to use this run here. And let me actually put some comments here. Main thread function. Here you go. Let me run this so you guys will be able to see why it's not a great idea. So if everything went right, I was able to see like a lot of ticks here being called every frame. But since this is actually blocking and waiting for the user input, only if I press enter that it is gonna call the tick, and this is the tick. And of course, you as a server administration, you don't want to have to press enter every time you want to run something like to allow the players to move in the server. So that's why it's not a great idea to use the same thread that we use the terminal to call the tick. What we have to do is to create another thread to just run the tick like that. And of course, while self.running, because we only want to run this if the server is running, of course, I'm gonna call the tick. So self.tick. And I'm gonna start another thread here, because right now we only have one thread. I'm gonna have to start another one. So I'm gonna do tick thread, threading.thread. The target we're gonna be self.run tick. Here you go. And we're gonna do tick thread. Let me put like thread tick, just for us to be a little bit easier. .start. And now we have two threads running, and this one is actually calling the tick. And in the end here, when I finish this, I'm gonna do thread.tick.join, because I want to wait until this tick's thread finishes. Okay, so now if you play the game, you'll be able to see a lot of ticks per second. So if I run this, here you go, it's working. It's a nightmare, and I can still press kill and have something like and keep the game. which is great. So the other thread, the main thread, the terminal is running, and if I press kill or type kit, it's gonna set running to false, and it's gonna interrupt this thread as well. So this is another thread. We'll call the tick method every x times a frame, defined by self.tick frequency, right? Here you go. So how can we do this? This is important, okay? We're gonna have to use time. And one thing that is very important is that we need to understand how many time can we wait for this to work. And what we can do here inside the running is like wait time is 1 divided by self.tick.frequency, because if it's like 16 frames per second, we can do 1.0 divided by 16, and you're gonna have like the amount of time that we need to wait. And why I imported the time? Because time have a very useful function called time, and it's gonna return the timing seconds of your system basically, and we can use that to like figure that out. Okay, so let me create a private variable called last tick time, and I'm gonna call it 0 by default. Okay, actually let me call it time.time. Okay, and every time we tick, here you go. What is a tick? It's here. We're gonna set the last tick time to the current system time. Okay, after the tick, of course. And then in the next frame, actually it's first, it's before that, it's not after. Here you go. We will be able, if you have like, since we have the last tick time, we will be able to see how many time passed since this time. So if I do like elapsed time equals to time.time, which is the current time, minus the last tick time, you're gonna have exactly how many seconds passed since the last tick. So what we can do here is basically say like if wait time elapsed time is higher than the wait time, and I do not need to put this into parentheses, then you reset the tick and call, of course, the tick. This will be enough for us to have like the code, the tick method running at the frequency that we wanted to run. Okay, and just for us to have a little bit of a test, let me add a counter equals to 0, and let me increment this counter every time plus equal to 1, and then let me print this counter here just for us to see this stuff going on. So I have a lot of stuff here. It's being incremented a lot, but let's try to set the frequency to 1, like 1 frame per second. Okay, and in the run tick here you go, with 1 frame per second in the server, if you run this, here you go, 1 2 3 4 5 6 7, very slow, and everything is going on. If I press kill, it's gonna kit. And this is a problem as well. It also shows us that we can't have more than 1 thread printing stuff in the console, because take a look at that. I typed kill and it messed around with my print. Okay, so this is important to keep in mind. We cannot like print stuff in the console everywhere. What we were gonna do later on is to create like a method inside the terminal to add a message to a query, and then the server administration we'll be able to see that. But it's not a problem for now. Let's just not worry about that. So this is good, but it also have a problem. It have a very, very, very important problem here, because this is actually, this thread run tick will actually run as fast as it can, meaning that it's gonna consume 100% of the CPU available to it, because it's gonna just keep running the while loop another and another time, and they're gonna try to verify this condition will not gonna be true, and then they're gonna try to run again and again and again. And this is not what we want, because we don't want our server to eat our resources, the CPU resources. So this is not good, and we need to stop this. Like, please stop, just wait for it some time. Okay, so this is very important, and the way we can do this is like, if elapsed time is less than the wait time, we can do the remaining, that it basically be the wait time minus the elapsed time. Okay, so this is the remaining time that we have, and what we can do here is put this thread here to sleep for to that amount of time. And in Python, if you have, I was like doing some random tests here. Let me just, here we go. Let me actually create a new terminal. I should have been done that from the beginning, but don't worry. Let me create a new Python terminal here. Here we go. And if I import, I can like time.sleep for a second, and it's gonna sleep for the entire second. If I put like 0.1 second, it's gonna sleep for 0.1 second. If I put like 10 seconds, the server, the thread, is gonna sleep for 10 seconds. So we're gonna use that to make this this thread sleep for this remaining time. So time.sleep remaining. And what is good about that is that we can literally like remove this anyways. Okay, and just for us to have a little bit of fun, let me run this application here. And I removed this this stuff that we did right now. Let me run this. It's running at 1 frame per second, but if I check the CPU usage here, take a look at that. The Visual Studio Code CPU usage is near to 25%. And by the way, it's in Portuguese, but it doesn't matter. So this is the CPU usage. My computer is a quad core, so I have 4 cores only. In other words, the maximum amount of performance that a single core can take to it is 25%. And if you see here in the application open it, Visual Studio Code is eating almost 25%. And if I open this, if I expand this, you can see a Python process here eating 25%. And that's terrible. That's literally not what we want. Like, I don't want Python to use all my CPU, because again, I don't want it to eat my resources. So I'm gonna go ahead and shut down this application, and I'm gonna implement the new system that will basically put the thread to sleep. And we don't need this anymore, because when it finishes here, the sleeping time, it will already be time to run this stuff. And another thing that is important is, you can see here that I put the tick after resetting the time. And why I did that? Because I want this time to actually consider the tick time. Because let's say that the game is running at 60 frames per second. It means that every frame takes 16 milliseconds, okay? And but you also want these 16 milliseconds, we're gonna include the amount of time spent in the tick, okay? So this is very important for us. But now, let me run it again. Let me save, and let me run. Again, still running at 1 frame per second, as you can see here. But now, the CPU usage is near to 0. Take a look at that, 0.9, 1%. And if you open the Python here, both Python processes here inside Visual Studio Code is eating 0% of CPU. So this server is now way more lightweight, and again, you need to keep the resources low, because in the end you will run the server in another machine that you will probably pay per resource usage. That's why we need to keep this thing simple. That's why we need to keep this thing like as lightweight as possible. Okay. Oops, I typed kill by accident here, and now everything is freezed. Here you go. This thing is very important, and now the thread is gonna sleep again for the remaining time, and we can have something cool going on here. Okay, we can have like the MMO server with a tick method that are gonna be called every frame, and we're gonna do some cool stuff. Okay, and of course I can change the tick here, the frequency of the tick. I'm gonna keep it, I'm probably gonna keep it at 30 frames per second and maybe 15 frames per second. And I know some people go ahead and say, oh my god, that's not a lot, you need your game to run fast. Remember, the speed of the server is not the speed that the game will run in the client computer. We're gonna do another stuff, we're gonna do interpolation and a bunch of other cool stuff later on. So keep that in mind, okay? And well, that's basically it for this video. I'm gonna keep it simple because in this video we did a lot of stuff. It may not sound like, but we finished the tick here in the frequency. Of course, the tick is doing nothing at the moment, but this is another story, because we need to finish the connection. We need to have like a TCP, a client and server connection, and then a UDP connection to send informations. So this is another story, and I'm gonna do that in another day, in another video. And in this video, we basically finished again the tick of the server. So let me actually do something cool. Let me actually do here in the terminal interface. Let me change the tick. Let me allow the user to change the tick. That is gonna be good. Like in the terminal interface. Oh, the tick actually needs to be like to have a lock. So let me do that. Tick frequency lock. I wish Python had like an atomic variable, because in C++, leave me a comment if you know that. In C++ you can do std atomic and just create a boolean, not a boolean, for example, an integer for the tick, and this you're not going to require a mutex to work. You're going to work just fine. Okay, I wish Python had that, but I don't think so. Anyways, well, this is now private, and I'm gonna have to do just like I did with the running. Let me actually copy and paste this variable here. But now with the tick frequency, I need a property decorator. Property get a tick. Tick frequency lock, and tick frequency setter. I think that's it. I replaced everything, and my code should work just fine with the getter and setter again. No, I have an error here, indentation level. Oh, I actually deleted a part of this stuff. No, this is the setter, and I have, here you go. My bad. Sorry. Just me being dumb, minimizing the stuff. Yeah. It's working just fine, and is it 30 frames a second? Yes, it's 30 frames. That's why it's screaming. Let me actually put like a very low stuff, like 0.1. Can we do that? I'm not sure. I'm curious to see. Yes, now the server is running at 0.1 frame per second. Amazing. It's less than 1 frame. It's like, yes, it's gonna block for a long time. But let me finish this in the terminal interface with 3 methods here. Set tick, get tick, returns the server, the current server tick, how many times it updates per second, and I'm gonna print like tick is equal to self.server dot tick frequency, and I'm gonna do like the set tick new tick. This is probably gonna be a string, okay, and sets the server tick and self server dot tick frequency is gonna be like an integer. Let me put a float actually, new tick, because if you put a float you'll be able to put like 0.1 stuff, okay? And this is important. The float cannot be negative number, okay? So if float is less or equal to 0, we're gonna return print error set tick can't receive a negative value. And this is this is not a float actually, like tick equals to 0, try tick equals to float new tick, accept print error set tick receives a float. Here you go. Now let me return. We should be able to get and set the tick. We should not, because I forgot to indent this code, but now if I run it, indentation problems again. Oh, here we go. Python being Python. Get tick is 0.1, and let me wait for that to tick. Here we go. It's working 1. Set tick to 1, and now it's not working. It's not. Maybe. Oh yeah, here we go. The problem with that is that I don't know if you guys saw that, but it took a while for this change to be effective. And why it took a while? Because of the mutex. Basically, let me actually close this. The set tick will actually lock the tick frequency here and do another stuff, and it changed. Oh, actually, it was not about because of that. It was because we was waiting some time here, okay? We was sleeping. That's why it took a lot of time to actually make the changes effective. But again, that's not a problem. It's not a huge problem. And now we have the server up and running with a tick that we can write whatever we want here, the code that we want to do in the game. It's not looking like a server, like a game server, not just yet, but trust me, it is gonna look like that very soon. In the next video, we may finally start writing the connection, because yes, folks, a lot of videos and nothing about connections, nothing about sockets. We're gonna do that in the next video. So I hope you enjoyed this video as I'm doing. I'm enjoying to do it. And if you have any questions or comments, please leave in a comment and I'm gonna try to answer as fast as possible. My name is Guilherme and I see you in the next video.